Okay, now we're gonna read the rest of this and be done. There's 4 pages of the test, Genesis 42. "3 days went by, then Joseph told his brothers, 'Only one of you must stay. The rest of you may go home, take wheat with you, but bring back your youngest brother back here. That way I'll know you told the truth.' The brothers began to talk to each other. 'This is what we get for being mean to Joseph long ago. We saw how upset he was, and he asked us to be kind to him, but we didn't listen.' Reuben said, 'I told you not to hurt Joseph, but you wouldn't listen. Now we are paying for what we did.' They didn't know Joseph could understand every word they said, and when Joseph spoke in language of Egypt, another person had to tell his brothers what he said. But Joseph didn't know what they were saying. He had to turn his face away from them. He was starting to cry. In a minute, he turned around and he chose Simon to stay in jail, and he let the others go home. Joseph told his helpers to do 3 things. They had to fill his brother's bags with wheat, and then they had to put each brother's money back in his bag, and then they had to give his brothers food for the trip back. Joseph's helper followed his orders, and then his brothers put their bags on their donkeys' backs, and they started home. And that night, Joseph's brothers stopped to rest, and one of them wanted to feed his donkey. So he opened his bag to get some wheat, and that's when he saw the money in the bag. "My money has been given back to me," he said. "It's right here in my bag." They all looked at each other, and they began to shake with fear. "What is God doing to us?" They asked. But they kept on going home. And when they got there, they told Jacob about the trip. "This man is in charge of all the land," they said. "He spoke in a mean voice, and he said he had to we came to trick him. He told us to bring our youngest brother to Egypt, and then he would know we are telling the truth about our family." They began to open their bags and dump the wheat out, and they saw each brother's money in his own bag, and they were scared. Jacob said, "Joseph is gone. Simon is in jail in Egypt. Now you want to take Benjamin back with you? "Everything is going wrong. I will take care of Benjamin," said Reuben. "Trust me. Trust him to me." "No," said Jacob. "We can't go with you. Joseph is dead. Benjamin is Rachel's only son. Who is left? What if something happens to him? I would be sad for the rest of my life." Genesis 20:43. No more wheat. Time passed. Jacob's family ate up all their wheat, and still no food was grown in their land. So Jacob called his sons. "Go back to Egypt," he said. "Buy some more food for us." "We can't do that," said Judah. "The man told us we must bring our youngest brother next time. We'll go back if you let Benjamin come too, but if Benjamin can't come, we won't go." "Why did you tell him about Benjamin?" asked Jacob. "He asked us about our family," they said. "We just answer his questions. How could we know he wants to see Benjamin?" "Send Benjamin with me," said Judah. "We must go right away. If we don't, our families will die of hunger. I promise I will bring him back safely to you. We waited so long to go to Egypt. We could have been there and back 2 times by now." "All right," said Jacob. "Then take some of the best gifts that we have. Give them to this man, and take some honey and spices and nuts, and take 2 times as much money with you. Maybe it was put back into your bags by mistake. And take Benjamin too." And so they took Benjamin and the money and the gifts, and they headed for Egypt. Dinner at Joseph's house, Genesis 20:43. Joseph's brothers went quickly to Egypt, and they went to see Joseph. Joseph saw Benjamin there with them, and so he called his chef servant, "And these men will eat with me at noon today," he said. "Take them to my house and make dinner for us." The servant led the brothers to Joseph's house, and when they saw where they were going, they were afraid. This is because our money was in our bags, they said. This man is going to make us his slaves. He will take our donkeys too. And they stopped in front of Joseph's house, and they talked to Joseph's servant. We were here before to buy food, they said, and we stopped to rest on our way home, and that's when we found our money back in our bags. We don't know who put it there, but we have brought the money back with us. Don't worry, said the servant. God must have put your money back in your bags. I got the money you paid before. Then the servant took Simon out of jail, and he took Simon to his brothers, and he took them all into Joseph's house, and he brought water to so they could wash up, and he fed their donkeys. Joseph's brothers got their gifts ready, and they had heard that Joseph would be there for dinner. And when Joseph got there, his brothers gave them their gifts, and they bowed to him. Joseph asked, "How is your father?" "He is fine," they said. Joseph looked around, and he saw Benjamin. "Is this your youngest brother?" he asked. Then he talked to Benjamin. "May God bring good things to you," he said. This was his own brother. Rachel was their mother. It was good to see him. Joseph felt like crying, so he hurried in his own room and cried. And then Joseph washed his face and came out. And he told his servants to bring our food. Joseph ate by himself, and the brothers ate together in a group. Other people from Egypt ate there too, but they sat in different groups. The people of Egypt never ate with God's people. Now each of Joseph's brothers had a place to sit, and they were seated in order of how old they were. And the one born first was the first to be seated, and then they came the second, and the third, and so on. And Benjamin was last. And they all looked at each other, and they were surprised. And then the servants gave them dinner, but the servants gave Benjamin 5 times more than anyone else, so they ate and drank at Joseph's house. Genesis 44. Joseph gave orders to the servant, "Put wheat in the man's bags and give them as much as they can carry, and put their money back in their bags too, and then my silver cup, put it in the bag of the youngest brother." So the servant did what Joseph told him. The next morning, Joseph's brothers got the bags of wheat, and they put them on their donkeys, and then they headed home. Soon after they had gone, Joseph called his servants. "Go catch up with these men right away," he said. "Tell them that I was kind to them. Ask them why they were mean to me, and ask why they took my silver cup." So the servant chased after Joseph's brothers, and at last he found them, and he said just what Joseph had told them to say. Why would we take a cup?" they asked. "Last time we were here, we found money in our bags, but we brought it back. If one of us had the cup, you may kill him. Then you may take the rest of us to be slaves." "All right," said Joseph's servant, and they all took their bags down off their donkeys, and he opened the bags, and the servants began with the oldest brother. And he looked in his first bag, and then he went to the second brother, and he looked in every brother's bag, and he came to Benjamin's bag at last. That's where he found the cup. All the brothers were very upset, and they put their bags back on their donkeys, and they headed back to Joseph's house. And when they saw Joseph, they bowed. "What did you do?" they said. "Joseph, didn't you know that I would find this out?" "There is nothing we can say," said Judah. "We can't prove that we didn't do it. We are your slaves." "No," said Joseph, "I will only take the one who had the cup. He will be my slave. The rest of you make a home." Judah said, "Please don't be angry with me, but I promised that I would bring the boy home again. If I don't bring him back, our father will die. Please let me be your slave instead. Let the boy go back home." Telling the secret, Genesis 45. Then Joseph couldn't stand it anymore, and he sent everyone but his brothers out of the room. And then he told them who he really was. "I am Joseph," he said. He cried out loud. Even the people outside the room heard him. And they told the people at the king's house about it. "Is my father still alive?" Joseph asked. Joseph's brothers could not say a word. They were afraid. I am Joseph, your brother, he said. You sold me to be a slave. I was taken to Egypt, but don't worry about it now. God sent me here so I could save many lives. God put me in charge here, and there would be 5 more years without food. So go back and bring your families to live here. Tell our father that God made me the ruler of Egypt. Then Joseph hugged Benjamin and cried some more. Benjamin cried and hugged Joseph too, and then Joseph kissed all of his brothers, and they talked together. The king soon heard that Joseph's brothers were in Egypt, so he told Joseph, bring your brothers' families here to live. You can have the best land. Take carts with you, so their children and wives can ride, and bring your father too. Don't worry about bringing anything else. You can get whatever you need when you get here. So Joseph gave his brothers some carts, and he gave them food for the trip. He gave new clothes to each of them, but he gave 5 sets of clothes to Benjamin, and he gave 300 pieces of silver to Benjamin too. Joseph sent his fathers 20 donkeys with packs on their backs, and the packs were full of wheat, bread, and other food, and they carried all kinds of good things from Egypt. As his brothers were leaving, Joseph called out to them, don't fuss and fight on the way, he said. So Joseph's brothers went to Canaan loaded with gifts, and they told Jacob, Joseph is alive. He is the ruler of Egypt. Jacob could hardly believe it, but they told him all about the trip. They told him all about the trip, and they showed him all the gifts, and then he said, I believe it now. Joseph is alive. I will go and see him again. Moving to Egypt, Genesis 46:47. Jacob got his family together, and they set out for Egypt one night on their trip. God called Jacob. I am here, said Jacob. Don't be afraid to go to Egypt, said God. I will turn your family into a big nation there, and I will be with you. So off they went to Egypt, and the women and children rode in carts, and they brought their sheep and cows along too. Joseph had told them to go to a place called Goshen. Joseph rode in his chariot and to meet them there. And when Jacob saw Joseph, he hugged him and cried, now I can die in peace, he said. I know that you are alive. What is the noise? What's up, guys? I'm gonna hurry up and get done. Then Joseph spoke to his brothers. I'm going to talk to the king about you, and he will ask you what kind of work you do, and tell him that you take care of sheep. That way he will let you live in Goshen. And the people of Egypt don't like sheep farmers. Joseph took 5 of his brothers to see the king, and the king asked, what kind of work do you do? We take care of sheep, they said. We would like to live in Goshen. The king told Joseph, give your family the best land in Egypt and let them live in Goshen. And maybe some of your brothers are very good with sheep, so you can put them in charge of my sheep too. And then Joseph took his father to see the king. And how old are you? Asked the king. I am 130 years old, said Jacob. Then Jacob prayed for God's best for the king, and Joseph let his brothers and their families live in Goshen, and he gave them as much food as they needed. Now people began to run out of money, and they couldn't pay for their food, and Joseph gave them. So they traded their sheep and cows for the food, but next year they ran out of sheep and cows. So they traded their fields for food, and they ran out of the fields. So they sold themselves as servants, and that's the way Joseph got money and the sheep and cows. For the king, he got fields and servants for the king, and the people were just glad to have food to eat. Jacob's last words, Genesis 47:49. Jacob, who was called Israel, and knew he would die soon. He had lived 17 years old in Goshen, and he was 147 years. 147 years. Pillows are in the way, huh? He was 747 years old, and he called for Joseph's promise, "You won't make my grave in Egypt," he said. "When I die, take my body back to Canaan." "All right," said Joseph, he promised. Later, a message came to Joseph. "Your father is sick." So Joseph took his sons Messiah, Ephraim with him, and they went to see Jacob. And Jacob heard that Joseph was there, and so he sat up in his bed, and he told Joseph about God's promise. "And God told me He make my family into a big nation. He told me, 'Here, give me the land of Canaan, and you and your sons are part of my family.' So your sons will have part of Canaan too." And Jacob could hardly see, but he saw that someone was with Joseph. "Who is with you?" he asked. "These are my sons Ephraim and Messiah," said Joseph. "I want to pray for God's best for them," said Jacob. So Joseph brought them close to him and hugged him and kissed him. And then, "I never thought I would see you again," he told Joseph. "Now I have even seen your children." And Jacob put his right hand on Ephraim's head, and he put his left hand on Messiah's head, and then he prayed for them. "And God was my shepherd all my life, and he was the angel who kept me safe. I prayed that he would do good things for these boys, and I prayed that he would make their families great." And then Jacob called all of his sons. "Come close around me," he said. "Reuben, you are the strongest, but you are like waves of water. You will not be the strongest anymore. Simon and Levi, your tools are swords. You killed men because of your anger, and you will go here and there in the land. Judah, you are like a lion cub. Kings will come from your family, and your brothers will say good things about you. And Zebulun, you will live by the sea, and you will be a place where ships stay, and ships will be safe there. And Asher, you are like a lazy donkey. It likes to lie down between the packs, and you will work for other people. And Dan, you are like a snake by the road. It bites at the heels of the horse, and it will make the riders fall. God robbers will fight with you, but you will fight them back. Asher, your food will be the best, and it will be good enough for a king's table. And Naphtali, you are like a deer that runs free. It has pretty fawns. Joseph, you are like a tree with lots of fruit, and I pray for God's goodness for you. It's greater than the goodness of the old mountains. You are the prince of my sons, and you have stayed strong with God's help. Benjamin, you are like a wolf that catches its food." And this is how Jacob called Israel, prayed for his 12 sons. And now the families of Jacob's sons go by these 12 names, and these are the family groups or tribes of Israel. Then Jacob told them, "I'm going to die soon. Make a place for my body in Canaan. Use the cave where Abraham and Sarah's body are. That's where Isaac and Rebekah's bodies are too. And that's where Leah's body is." After this, Jacob, who was called Israel, pulled his feet into his bed. Then he died. A trip to the cave. Genesis 50. Joseph cried when his father died. Then he talked to the king. "My father made me promise to take his body to Canaan, so let me take his body to the cave there, and then I will come back." "Go ahead," said the king. "Keep your promise." So Joseph went back to Canaan, and the leaders of Egypt went with him, and Joseph's brothers went too. But they left their children, sheep, and cows in Goshen, and they stopped at a place near the Jordan River, and they had 7 days of crying. The people who lived nearby saw all the crying, and they said, "This is the sad time for Egypt's people." Jacob's sons put his body in a cave, and it was there. It was where Abraham and Sarah's bodies were, and then they all went back to Egypt. Now Joseph's brothers were afraid, and they said, "Joseph might still be angry with us. It's all because we sold him many years ago." And so they sent Joseph a message. "Before our father died, he told us something. He said we should tell you to forgive us. So we ask you to forgive us." Joseph cried, and when he heard the message, then Joseph's brothers came and bowed to him. "We will be your servants," they said. But Joseph was kind to them and said, "Don't be afraid. He meant to hurt me, but God planned for good things to come from it. Many lives have been saved because of what happened, so don't be afraid. I will take care of you and your families." Joseph lived 110 years. He even had great-grandchildren, and before he died, he called his brothers, Promise me something, he said. When you leave Egypt, take my bones with you. And they promised sometime later. And Joseph died. And that's the end. And then the story goes to Moses from Egypt to the Promised Land. I'll read that tomorrow. So I'm gonna say a prayer. Lord, please give my treasured friends love and blessings without end, and bring contentment in their life, comfort. I'm gonna pray this one. I treasure my wonderful friends so much. Thank you for the presence in my life, and I ask you, would you watch over them and lead them into hope and blessings, and I trust that you will protect and hold them when life is hard. Lord, help me to be a good friend to them. Amen. Jesus, I believe you love me, so please forgive me for my sins and help me to be a better person. Amen. Remember, when people give up on you, God doesn't give up on you, never. God does not give up on any of us, but wants us to be in a relationship with Him through faith in Jesus Christ's finished work on the cross. Bye. I'm done with reading that. See you tomorrow.